out of control and we now need to go up against them, that is my right. It is not their right to tell me what weapon I'm going to use. God forbid this country gets to that point.
Never said I oppose fracking. Show the tape. Put it on your website. Put it on the website.
Live from Clark Studios in Rochester, New York. Broadcasting around the world. You're listening to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
It hasn't even been 60 days since Biden moved into the White House, and already this country is completely falling apart. I don't think there's been a single day that's gone by where a catastrophic event hasn't occurred. Within 1 week, over 42 executive orders were signed, killing tens of thousands of jobs. The raging border crisis quickly dominated the headlines, followed by more executive orders that put America last, before quickly moving on to mass shootings, followed by fake violence down in Miami, and now domestic terrorism. If you haven't noticed a trend with the left by now, you're either insanely naive, in which case I envy you, or you're refusing to accept the fact that the Democrats are out to destroy America in their continued quest for control and power. Regardless of what they want you to believe, the Democrats aren't the solution to the problem here. They are the problem. And over the next hour, I'm going to prove to you exactly why there's increased drama every single time the Democrats take control. Let's over today to start our show over at Fox News, where we look at where the drama all started with a violent staged event down in Miami. And if you don't do your research and you don't pay close attention, you'd actually think spring breakers were the problem. They are not, I can assure you. Let's go over to the Keyboard Warrior Cam and take a look as we start our show for today. So I saw this yesterday, and I was very surprised when I initially read the headlines. I thought, what the hell is going on down in Miami? Miami Beach spring break arrest top 1,000, officials say. So obviously I have to look into this. And the first red flag that came to mind was, wait a second. Florida's been doing great with the coronavirus. Florida is the only state left in America that is truly free. Governor DeSantis has been under increased pressure from the Biden administration. And DeSantis has rightly so punched back and won every single debate. So when suddenly I see that things are out of control down in Miami, I have to assume the left are up to something. Let's be honest here. Florida is making the Democrats look really bad. I mean, catastrophically bad. They've embarrassed the hell out of Cuomo here in New York, and they continue to embarrass every single Democratic blue state because they've all locked down, pissed their constituents off, destroyed the lives of nearly everybody in these blue states, especially the children who have been out of school. And Florida has been wide open. No problems. So naturally, they're making the Dems look really bad. They have the lowest death rate out of all the lockdown states. And the statistics continue to show that lockdowns aren't the answer. So they've made the Democrats look really bad. They've got it completely under control down in Florida. So Biden comes out a few weeks ago. Biden comes out and says, you know what? We might have to restrict domestic travel because, see, he can't handle that Florida is making the rest of the country look so bad. And cases are spiking in Democratic blue states. They're spiking all over the country. And Biden says, we got to lock down the country. And DeSantis is like, no, you're not doing that. You're not locking down domestic travel into Florida. We're doing really well. He comes out with press releases. He comes out with stats showing just how better off they are than most every other country. So the Democrats don't like that. They don't like that DeSantis is continuously punking Cuomo and other Democratic governors. They don't like that people are having fun in America, apparently. So what do? They decide to use the BLM playbook and say, let's cause some disruption down in Florida. And you know why I know this? Because Florida has been having spring breakers down there for decades. Decades, people have been traveling to Florida. And suddenly, out of the blue, for the very first time ever, like in the history of spring break, there's riots and violence and guns being confiscated. Like violence we've never seen before. From college kids who want to go down there and get drunk and get laid and party a little bit on the beach are now running around with guns, terrorizing the city, causing mass disruption to the entire Miami Beach and bringing down the tourism industry overnight? I don't think so. The whole thing didn't look right from the beginning. So it led me to question, first of all, why are spring breakers down there with guns? Why have they confiscated 80 guns from these spring breakers? That was my first red flag. We know they've been traveling to Florida for decades. Never have we seen this much violence. So clearly, as we know, the Democrats like to cause drama in order to come sweeping in and look like the saviors of this drama, or as a way to shame the Republicans for wanting to have a little fun or for not locking down the state like other Democratic states have done. It's very simple. The Democrats look stupid right now. They look absolutely stupid. They thought they were doing everybody a favor by locking us down and making us mask up. Trump, when he was in control, he said, listen, lockdowns aren't doing anything. Governor DeSantis backed him up in Florida and said, look, I've got the statistics to back up Trump. They're not doing anything. Biden clearly doesn't like that. Now we've got Democrats in control. They don't want the last free state to make the rest of the country look bad because it makes Biden look bad. And God forbid the Democrats admit they were wrong ever. We know they won't do that because look at what's going on in the border crisis that we're having. They continue to talk about coronavirus and freaking double masking, but they refuse to admit there's a crisis down at the border. The Democrats are incapable of admitting that they are wrong, that they are destroying this country, that in just 60 days, we are now back to domestic terrorist attacks. We've got a raging border crisis that is costing us hundreds of millions of dollars. And now we've got 2 mass shootings, all under Biden's watch. They want to turn a blind eye to all of it, and they want to continue to distract us with bullshit like this down in Florida, which we all know are not spring breakers. So let's ask some of the Floridians. Let's actually look at the comments on this post and try to get to the bottom of this. Because I'm telling you right now, guys, this looks and smells like the BLM playbook. I don't think Black Lives Matter is down there. No, I don't even know if it's Antifa. But I strongly believe that this is another organized mob brought to you by the left to continue to put America last, shut down Florida once and for all because nothing they've tried has been able to do that, so they don't look bad. Let's see what the comments are here and what the American people have to say about what's going on in Florida. It's very sad that it's come to this. It's sad that we have a government that is so power hungry, that is so control hungry, that they now have to focus and exasperate and possibly provoke and encourage events like this. Chris says most of these so-called spring breakers are not college students on spring break. In fact, many colleges canceled spring break this year, and many of those arrested were in the late 20s and 30s. These are folks who missed the BLM riots this summer and are making up for lost time. When you look at pictures of what's going on down in Miami Beach right now, you will know and see very quickly these are not spring breakers. Spring breakers are usually between 18 and 21 to 22 years old. These are in their late 20s and 30s, from people who are down in the ground reporting what's really going on. So I don't care what CNN has to say about any of this. I want to know from people who are down there on the ground getting to the bottom of this. Is this really a matter of spring break out of control, or is there a hidden agenda here? Lee says, so spring break gets you free jail cell, and coming in the country illegally gets you a free hotel room? So sad what we are turning into so fast. Again, with the distractions. We refuse to discuss the fact that we have now just spent $89 million on converting hotels into dorm rooms for illegal immigrants. We don't want to talk about that. So we're now dangling another silver bullet distraction in front of the American people that have to do with college kids. 1,000 people were just arrested. Even if this was totally legit, which I don't believe it is for a second, even if it was totally legit, you mean to tell me that in just 2 nights down in Miami Beach, we've arrested 1,000 hooligans for partying and drinking and breaking curfew, and we couldn't even arrest over more than 300 people all last summer during BLM while they continued to burn, loot, steal, and bring cities to their knees. So that's what we do now in America. We arrest and throw kids in jail for drinking a little too much. Yet we let 300 illegal immigrants flood the border, cross the border every single day. And when we catch them, we give them a hotel room, which is costing you, the taxpayer, to the tune of $80 million. That's what this country has now come to. So when you see things like Miami Beach, violent spring breakers, you better believe it's a distraction. So you take your eye off of what's really going wrong in this country, which is illegal immigration, domestic terrorism. And we'll get into mass shootings in just a second, which we all know the real hidden agenda behind. Nelda says, when will they figure out many are not spring break college kids? They were paid to create chaos and chastise Florida for handling the virus successfully. Slamming Governor DeSantis is the goal. We know that's the goal. And if you remember just a few weeks ago, Biden was talking about shutting down domestic travel in the United States. Governor DeSantis hit back hard and said, you're not doing that. And here's why. Florida is actually 5 to 10 times better off than nearly every other deep blue state and nearly every other state per capita for coronavirus cases nationwide. And he threw the stats back in the Biden administration's face, and that was it. We didn't hear a peep out of Biden after that. DeSantis knows what he's doing. He's got a better control on the vaccine distribution. He's got the best case per capita out of everybody. He's gotten more senior citizens vaccinated than any other state in record-breaking time. And he's making the Democrats look horrible over the whole situation. If DeSantis was a Democrat, you better believe the entire damn country would be open right now. But God forbid a Republican has made the Democrats look like absolute morons throughout this entire pandemic. And now they want to shut down Florida as well. So they decide to launch violence. They decide to send in the troops to cause a ruckus once again. Beverly says at least Miami tried to stop this and actually arrested people, unlike Seattle, Portland, Chicago, Milwaukee, etc., who did nothing to the protesters who vandalized, burned down businesses, murdered, and assaulted people. And we just talked about that. The very fact that even if this was a legit situation, where were all the arrests? In Portland, Chicago, Seattle, Minneapolis, Milwaukee, everywhere else that we saw under attack over the summer. So now we're arresting people for breaking curfew. The next is the media is going to have a spectacle out of this and start discussing the fact that coronavirus cases skyrocketed from the violence down at Miami Beach. You better believe that's going to be the story next week. It's so predictable with the left-wing media. I can pretty much tell you exactly what the headlines are going to be over the next week. I don't even need to have a crystal ball to tell you exactly what's going to happen. Carter says you can't party on a beach in America past 8 p.m. without getting arrested, but if you break the law to swim across a river, they give you a hotel room and money for food. He's referring to the southern border, the problems that we have down there right now, and the hypocrisy, the continued hypocrisy of the Democrats. We have to remember there's a raging border crisis. It's so bad that at the height of the border crisis back in the Obama era, Obama himself called it a crisis. We had roughly 1,000 illegal border crossings per day. That was considered a crisis. Joe Biden now has nearly 5,000 illegal border crossings per day. Every single day, we are now seeing 5 times the original or the previous all-time high. So if it was a crisis when 1,000 illegal immigrants were flooding the border, what do we call this? This is a monumental, catastrophic disaster. And the Biden administration not only admits, or not only doesn't admit that there's a problem, they continue to deny it. Every time they are asked, every time Psaki is asked, it's crickets. They don't say a thing. Jane says, take a look at them. They are not college kids from out of state looking to drink beer on the beach. They are thugs looking to get away with what they have been allowed to. Get it right, media. So there's clearly a huge issue down in Florida. All you got to do is do a little bit of research to know the real deal here. This isn't conspiracy theory stuff. It's very apparent that these are older adults. You just got to look at them. There's nothing for us to really research here besides looking at the pictures and putting 2 and 2 together. Jerry says these people causing the brawls at night do not appear to be the same spring break kids on the beaches and streets during the day. Big difference. Could the trouble be coming from kids that live in the area taking advantage of a reason to riot? Spring break has always had kids that drink too much and do stupid things, but this brawling and unlawfulness is new. And I agree, it is new. Spring breakers don't bring guns down to spring break. 80 guns have been confiscated since the riots have started. That does not look like spring breakers having too much to drink. Where are the guns coming from? How do you put guns on an airplane? And trust me, these kids aren't driving from all over the country. And if we really want to dig further into it, most college kids, they don't go to Miami Beach for spring break. They go down to Cancun. They go down to the Caribbean islands. So the fact that there's now such a problem in Miami Beach with guns leads me to believe there's something else here. And it leads me to believe they are trying to shut down Florida for making the rest of the country look bad. And they're going to continue to do it because we know the Democrats, they will do everything they possibly can, even if it's creating drama, to then go in and look like superheroes as they then put it out. Well, we're not stupid. We all know BLM was influenced by the likes of Kamala Harris and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and AOC and everyone else. They had BLM completely under their control, 100% under their control. They had BLM in, and they knew it from the very beginning. Then, when they had enough of the rioting, they told BLM, "You're done. Stop." You see how that works? BLM told their chess players, their pawns, exactly when to riot, and they told them when to stop. And when they told them to stop, they did, like good little Democratic liberals, and off they went back home because they thought they were actually going to get anything resolved from it. Now that they're realizing they're not, there's a little bit of a sticky situation that the Democrats find themselves in. And that is, they're not going to be able to control BLM for much longer because they feel like they've been lied to. That's a whole other issue that they're going to find themselves dealing with over the next few months. But for now, they told them to stop and they stopped. So what's going on down in Miami Beach looks very similar. We can't get a grip on the situation. We can't control DeSantis. We can't control Americans flying down there. We're trying to make coronavirus look a lot scarier than it is because we're not done with our agenda yet. We're not done writing the narrative yet for America. We need a little bit more time, and DeSantis is screwing the whole thing up for us. So let's go back to the BLM playbook. Let's send in our organized mobs. Let's cause disruption down in Miami. And maybe we'll get the media to then say, hey, do you see, maybe keeping Florida open isn't a great idea. And hopefully they'll get their way and have it shut down, just like they have with every other state in America. Fortunately, DeSantis is a lot tougher. So there's a lot of issues that we face now down in Miami. There's a lot of issues that we face with the left continuing to build up drama that just wasn't there to begin with. Also, they can come swooping in to suit their narrative. On the topic of race, we also have our issue with gun control. More drama brought to you by the left. As we all know, there was a mass shooting last week in Atlanta. So, this shooter went around and shot up a few massage parlors, and immediately he came out and admitted it wasn't racially motivated. Well, we all know how the Democrats love race. We know that any opportunity for the media to jump on the race bandwagon, they'll gladly take. So this really threw both the Democrats and the left-wing media a curveball. Police officials said the Atlanta area massage parlor attacks were not believed to have been racially motivated. And shooting suspect Robert Aaron Long instead allegedly opened fire because he saw the locations as an outlet for him to succumb to proposed or perpetrated sex addiction temptations, police and officials said during a news conference. So he's come out and he's admitted it. He straight up came out and he said, this is not racially motivated. Like, case closed, you're done. There's nowhere to go from there. It's not racially motivated. I have a sex addiction problem, and I took out these women because I'm mentally ill and I wanted to end my sex addiction once and for all. I mean, this is just how sick this guy is, that he went around, that he thought he can go and shoot up a few massage parlors. So he came out and said it's not racially motivated, but that's not good enough for the Democrats. That's not good enough for the left-wing media. Surely, because you went and shot a bunch of Asians in a massage parlor, that now we have an Asian racial issue. The Democrats can't go a single day without causing drama in America. How much drama did we really have under President Trump? How many racial attacks did we have? How many mass shootings did we have? What are the Democrats' two biggest issues right now that they are desperately trying to solve? Gun control and racism. Well, racism, I personally don't think there'd be too much of a problem if we just shut the hell up about it and stop talking about it. But for some reason, the Democrats want to conquer and divide so they can get more people on their side, so they can continue to win votes. So they need to make up racial incidences continuously to get enough people to finally believe there's a racial problem, which we all know there's not. And to prove it to you, I'll ask you this. How many arguments did you get in with black people before Black Lives Matter started destroying America? How many arguments with black people did you get into prior to BLM showing up? Personally, I didn't get into a single one. And now all of a sudden, BLM comes raging onto the scene, and all of a sudden, there's racism in America again. But that wasn't enough because we all got sick of it. We all got sick of it. We said, listen, can everybody shut up about racism now? We're done talking about it. They saw how we handled it on social media. Half the country fell victim. Half the country said, we're not buying into your BS. We don't believe it's as bad as you guys think it is. So the Democrats went back to the drawing board and they said, okay, we need another incident. Well, as soon as this man went in and shot up a few Asian parlors, they said, oh, great, we've got our motive. Let's jump on the Asian bandwagon or the racist bandwagon, and now Asians are going to be our next victim. And the Asian community is like, what the hell are you talking about? We don't see racism in America. We're totally fine. So what's funny is that Fox News, I love how Fox News has come out and immediately they report, listen, this guy made it very clear, okay? The Atlanta shooter says it's not racially motivated. That's it. Case closed. But not good enough for the Democrats. Atlanta mayor believes race played a role in spa shooting suspect's motive. It's like, hold on a second. You don't get to decide if race played a role here. He very clearly just came out and said race was not my motivation. This murder was not racially motivated. But nope, the Democrats, as we know, and the left, they love putting words in our mouths. They like telling you what you meant to say, and they do it a lot. They did it with Trump all the time. Well, no, what Trump really meant. Hold on a second. You don't get to tell Trump what he really meant. You don't get to tell me or the shooter or anyone else what they really meant. Because when I say I meant this, it's case closed. Like media, pack up your bags. You have no story here. F off. You're done. And leave it. But they can't. Because that's not good enough for the left. That's not good enough for the Democrats. They need their drama. The Democrats are addicted to drama, if you haven't noticed. They need constant drama because if they fuel situations that were never there in the first place, they get to then come in and be the savior to all. Meanwhile, the Republicans are sitting here thinking, have you guys lost your freaking minds? Are you that stupid that you can't see that this was just manufactured? Can you not see that none of this existed before the Democrats came on the scene to cause and create more drama? Like there was nothing to fix if the problem wasn't manufactured in the first place. So the Democrats are very good at this, and they continue to do it. And that's why they didn't like Trump, because every single time there was a mass shooting, Trump said, this isn't an issue. What problem do we have? Well, the media then had to classify a mass shooting as 3 people or more. And people have bombarded me with objections. I posted earlier today, guys, isn't it interesting how mass shootings spike when the Democrats are back in control again? And everybody bombarded. They're like, oh, what do you mean? They spiked in 2019 under Trump. Mass shootings, 3 people or more. And I was like, wait a second, guys, 3 people or more? Just because CNN wants to classify a mass shooting as 3 people or more doesn't mean it's an actual mass shooting. Let's stop redefining will constitute as a mass shooting just for show. Because 3 people is not a mass shooting. It's called a freaking violent act. People have been committing crimes forever. And I do remember everybody in the media blowing up these mass shootings for years while Trump is in charge. They weren't mass shootings. I remember thinking, why are we calling a gas station robbery a mass shooting? They happened all the time. If you look up all the crime throughout the United States, you're going to find that there's a lot of shootings that involve 3 or more people. But the media only want to focus on the ones that actually support their gun agenda. And it's all about gun control, this entire thing. So the Atlanta mayor, it's about gun control and racism. Racism to divide and conquer. And once they've done that, it's now on to gun control. See, they can't take your guns if too many people believe there's no gun issue. Well, what causes gun issues? Racism? Should we make that up? Maybe we'll throw racism in the mix. Oh, yeah, okay, we'll get more people to buy into the racism than we'll actually get them to buy in gun control. So it's a 2-step process that they're manufacturing and creating drama over. Racism to divide and conquer, gun control to then come for our guns. And if you're not paying attention, you won't see it coming. But for those of us who actually do a little research, we see it from a mile away. Let's take a look at the keyboard warrior cam and see what the American people have to say about the fact that the Atlanta shooting suspect very clearly said this is not racially motivated. Yet the Democrats and CNN and all the left-wing media want to play the race card once again and manufacture a problem that wasn't there in the first place, leaving the Asian community to actually back me up and prove there is no racial problem because they have come online lately and they've said it. Like, dude, leave us out of this. We have nothing to do with it. And for those of you who are thinking, well, he went up and shot all Asian women. Guys, let's be honest here, okay? How many massage parlors do you know that have white women in it giving happy endings? Not many. So that's not really a good rebuttal, telling me that, well, they were all Asian women. Because I don't know many massage parlors at all that have white women working in them that do extra favors for their customers. So it's a very bad rebuttal for me to buy into. Lisa says, well, surprise, surprise. The killings weren't racially motivated. Like I commented on an earlier report, the media needs to stop inserting such things into their news reports until investigations have been done by people, and then it all turns out not to be about race. Well, surprise, surprise, the killings weren't racially motivated, and they weren't. So CNN, left-wing media, Democrats, liberals, I don't care what you have to say about any of this, because the shooter himself already came online and said it wasn't racially motivated. Like, you have nowhere to go from there. I'm sorry. It's game over. Steve says, I watched The Presser. The media is so freaking corrupt. Over and over, they wanted anyone to say hate crime, after being told 3 times it wasn't. It was all about the media's hate, lies, corruption, and bigotry. They make me sick. So why is the media trying to get this guy to admit it was a hate crime? Well, hate crimes clearly carry a much stricter sentence than a mental illness. So this gentleman, he shot up massage parlors. He then said, I did it because of my sex addiction. I have a sex addiction, and I thought if I could take out these women, that I could end my sex addiction once and for all. Now, whether you or I believe this story, that's what he said. So again, it's up to psychiatrists to further investigate this even further. So it doesn't matter. We have no authority. We have no right to tell him he's lying. That's not your right. That's not my right. And it's definitely not the media's right. It's not Biden's right. It's not the Democrats' right. It's nobody's right. The only person who has that authority is a psychiatrist or perhaps a jury when his day in court comes. But let's not get the entire country wound up over something that just doesn't exist. Why are we now going to bring the Asian community into the race wars? Why are we all of a sudden going to create a racial divide between Asians and the rest of America just because CNN needs a story? No, because all they're going to do is now get everybody wound up against the Asian community the same exact way Black Lives Matter got everybody wound up against the black community. And there's even more of a divide now than ever because of these race wars. BLM has caused such hatred towards their organization because of how they carried out their acts over the summer. And unfortunately and sadly, the black community have now been caught in the crossfire. There is more of a divide than ever between white people and black people because of the mess that Black Lives Matter made. And now the left-wing media want the same thing for the Asian community. There isn't a problem. Before last week, did you hear of a race problem amongst the Asian community? I didn't, but now I see everywhere all over the internet. Next to BLM, you now have time to stand up for Asian lives. It's like, what are you talking about? Asian people are actually very successful. They're very successful and they're actually very wealthy compared to a lot of us. If anything, we should be jealous of the Asian community due to how successful they are. The Asian community do not like to play victim. They do not like to play the race card. So they don't want the spotlight right now, and they will slam shut the doors on the left-wing media. I'm telling you right now, guys, remember this when I say it. The left-wing media will not be able to make a spectacle out of the Asian community. I know how they operate. I know how they think. I lived in Shanghai, China for 10 years. They do not want the attention. They want to be left alone. And that is why they are so successful. That is why they'll continue to be successful. They will want nothing to do with this race war. So sorry, CNN. I hate to disappoint you. Sorry, left-wing media. You're not going to get a story here because there is no story. But we all know the Democrats, they need that drama. They need to divide and conquer. So they're going to continue to push it until the Asian community says, hey, listen, give it a rest, leave it alone. We're not interested. And that story will die fast. At least I hope it does. Jim says the left went right for the race card. How about the stereotype of these places is for sex, which is mostly true and usually have Asians performing it? I just made that point. How many massage parlors do you know that have white women performing sexual activities? We all know, unfortunately, it's Asian people performing these acts. The ones doing this illegal deed are not doing it voluntarily, but the left has two agendas to fill: gun control and the race card to divide. That is their MO, and that's exactly what they continue to push. It's a great comment. Amy says, some people wanted so badly for this to be about race. Politics, gun control, and white supremacy. See, if they keep pushing the race card, they're going to keep pushing white people down. They've done a great job at already pinning Trump supporters as white supremacists. Although 99% of them are not. They don't care. They're going to keep pushing that agenda. But clearly this is not the case, and that's ticking off a lot of people. This is exactly why people should stop claiming something and jumping to conclusions before the facts are out. It's a growing problem here in America, and we cannot get a single day without some sort of drama being thrown in our face. We can't go a single day without somebody playing the victim or the race card. We do have a huge race problem in America. It's called race baiting. That's the problem we have. Because half the country wants to continue to play victim, while the other half wants to get on with their life. If we all just forgot about this for a second, if we told the media they aren't allowed to report on race ever again, watch how quickly racism dies. And if there are pockets of communities in America that still have racism or have to deal with it, then those local communities can tackle it on their own. They can reach out for support. We'd gladly help them. We don't need to make it a nationwide spectacle every single time there's an isolated event. Because right now, these isolated pockets have now become a national disaster for the rest of us. And we've all been held back by it. Every single one of us. Now, if you're white, you're automatically racist. If you're a Trump supporter, you're automatically a white supremacist. We can't say or do anything or give our opinion now without black people calling us racist. And it was never like this. I didn't think we had a racist problem in my area. And I do hear from black people, well, just because you don't have racism in your area doesn't mean we don't have it in ours. Okay, fine, fair point. You guys deal with it. Why are you making it our problem? Maybe you don't have a racist problem. Maybe you have a people problem in your freaking town. Maybe you live in a messed up town with actual white supremacists. Maybe you might want to move if you don't want to live in that town. But stop holding the rest of the country hostage because you and the Democrats and the media want to race bait and play race wars to suit their narrative and their agenda. It's not our fault that there are issues throughout this country. If you want our help, just ask. But stop making me and everybody else feel guilty because of a problem that's happening 1,000 miles from here. That's not really fair. And America is starting to get really pissed off over it. Valerie says, good to know they put the truth out there right away instead of making the public believe it was racially motivated against Asians. And that's exactly what Fox did. And as soon as they broke this article, I thought, thank God Fox broke this already. Thank God that they pushed it out there and made it very clear this is not about race. Because as soon as I knew a shooter hit up these Asian massage parlors, I thought, oh, Jesus Christ, here we freaking go again. Watch how quickly CNN jumps on it. Oh, and they did. Their story was all about race, which is all about lies. And the right-wing Fox News article was all about what he actually said, the truth, that it wasn't racially motivated. But, of course, you have a handful of people who are not going to believe him. No, well, that's not what he meant because for some reason the left are really good at putting words in our mouth and they think they know better, even though we just said it and they heard it with their own two ears. They still think we didn't mean that. That's what they do. That's what they continue to do. Clayton says, maybe I'm just suspicious, but doesn't the timing of all this seem a bit too convenient? Given the recent push for yet more gun control, I smell a setup. And sadly, Clayton, you are absolutely right. Because look at this. Yesterday, another shooting in Colorado. And I thought, oh my freaking God. The Democrats haven't even been in control for 60 days, and we've now got our second shooting back-to-back weeks. And guess what? Immediately, Biden, on Tuesday, yesterday, implored the Senate to pass new gun control measures in the wake of a mass shooting that left 10 dead in Boulder, Colorado this week. So now Biden wants to quickly move this to the Senate because they know they haven't been able to push gun control for the last 4 years. We saw this every single time a mass shooting happened in the Obama era. I mean, there was a mass shooting. And by mass shooting, I don't mean this like little rinky-dink 3+ people bullshit that CNN wants to classify as a mass shooting. I'm talking a real mass shooting where a guy walks in, opens fire, and tries to take out as many people as he can, not a gas station robbery. And we had a lot of those during the Obama administration. We didn't really have many during the Trump administration. That's why the media had to lower what was classified as a mass shooting, because things were just a bit too dull for the left. It wasn't exciting enough. They thought, we're never going to be able to pass gun control here if there's no mass shootings. Oh yeah, how about, I have an idea, let's lower the number down to 3. Then there's just going to be a mass shooting every other day. Sure enough, every time I turned on CNN or any left-wing media source, there was another mass shooting because they lowered that number down to 3. Well, I didn't buy it. Neither did the Republicans. Trump definitely didn't buy it. And off we went. So now we're back. The Democrats are in charge. Within the first 2 months, we have 2 legit mass shootings. And all of a sudden, Biden's now calling for gun control measures immediately after the Boulder shooting. It's so predictable where we're headed right now. The left want our guns. Why? Why do they want our guns? For what reason? It's not like these criminals are going to go out and get their own guns illegally. The only people who are going to suffer here, if the Democrats actually pass a bill that comes for our guns, is legal citizens are going to lose out because they're the ones who aren't going to be able to defend themselves when a mental idiot goes and gets his hands on a machine gun and starts shooting up the city. Well, what's everybody going to do? Go run for the little hand pistol? So you're creating an unfair advantage amongst civilians, law-abiding civilians, and illegal criminals. That's the only thing that's going to happen here. It's not like gun control is going to solve anything. It's not going to solve these mass shootings. If anything, they might start using other weapons like bombs and other explosives. There's nothing pleasurable about what happened here in Colorado. It's a very sad situation. But can you imagine if they started using bombs instead of guns? We'd have a lot bigger problem on our hand. Can you imagine if every single mass murder attack now was through explosives? And no longer was it 10 people or 20 people, but it was now 100 people, 200 people. These sick people are going to do everything they can when they get it in their head that they want to kill. They're not going to care if they can't get their gun at Walmart. They're not going to care if they can't go to a legit gun dealer to get a gun. They're going to go to the black market. And I don't know why the Democrats are so stupid that they don't understand this. I don't know why they haven't looked at other countries and said, hey, you don't allow your citizens to have guns. Could we take a look at your crime rates? And they'll see that when criminals want to shoot places up, that they will get guns. They will see that there's other ways that these criminals kill people with other types of weapons. And to be quite frankly, I don't really give a shit what goes on in other countries, because other countries don't have what we have, the Constitution. As long as we have that ironclad document that our founding fathers gave us to protect us against a tyrant government, then I will continue to defend that Constitution and our rights to bear arms. I don't care if 5,000 people got shot up. It would be a very sad day in America, but I would still defend our Constitution. Our founding fathers gave us the Second Amendment, so we have a right to bear arms to overtake a tyrant government. And that means we have free reign and access to any weapon that might be able to do that. AR-15s, automatic weapons, machine guns, it doesn't matter. Our right to bear arms was put in place to defend ourselves and a tyrant government if they try to take us out. So, I'm a constitutionalist, and I will respect our Constitution. And no amount of mass shooting is going to get me to change my mind. I don't care what you think about me. You can call me a monster, an animal. But our Constitution is there for a reason. And I hope we fight this. But isn't it odd that since the Democrats took over, here we go with the mass shootings all over again? What do the American people think? Let's see. Am I the only one thinking this? Am I a crazy conspiracy theorist, or do other people share similar opinions? Nadine says, we definitely have an illegal gun problem in this country. Start there, Biden, or whomever is running this country. So yes, she's right. We have an illegal gun problem. And Biden, you might want to get a grip on that. Ruben says, we don't have a gun issue in America. We don't have a race issue either. What we have is a morality issue. And not until people get their head out of their asses, we will continue to have these issues. If they have evil in their heart, nothing will stop them from exercising that evil. It's a great point. We do have a mental illness issue in America. We have and nobody wants to tackle that. Nobody wants to talk about it. Let's start talking about the mental illness we have. Let's start talking about how crazy and psycho most of these millennial liberals are running around town trying to cram down this ridiculous indoctrination through our schools. Let's talk about that as a mental illness. Let's talk about the fact that America wants to constantly put everybody last, or America last, and put all these outrageous issues first. So we have a lot of issues in America. Gun control laws is not one of them. Jennifer says, stop avoiding the real problems. Maybe we could have used that $86 million that they are spending on illegals, which we talked about earlier in the show, that they are spending on illegals, and use it for mental health for Americans. That would never happen because it makes sense, and the Dems can't make sense. They don't. They create problems that aren't there in the first place to then swoop in and act like the solution so they can persuade and pretty much con more Americans to ultimately vote for them in the future. Colleen says, 2 big shootings since he talked about his gun control bill. Seems a bit coincidental. They will use these as ammo to pass their bill to take away the guns from legal and responsible citizens. But illegal guns will never be gone, and crime will go through the roof, especially with opening the border up and the cartel having their heyday over it. That's all we're doing here, people. That's all that's going to happen. Law-abiding citizens are going to lose their guns, and the illegal criminals are going to just stock up and have their way. Bernie says this only removes guns from law-abiding citizens. Criminals will still have the guns, and law-abiding citizens will not be able to protect themselves. Kimberly says, and here it is, folks. A tragedy bought and paid for by corrupt establishment to forward their agenda of disarming citizens. Bless those who lost their lives, and bless America for those who will defend the Second Amendment. It's absolutely right, and a phenomenal comment to end the show today on. So, as you can see, folks, the Democrats, they need drama in their lives. They need drama so they can fool the Democrats that there's actually a real problem here in America. There's not a problem. Racism isn't really an issue, people. It's been manufactured to divide and conquer. And once they divide and conquer us, they move on to plan or step 2 of their dictatorship, and that is take our guns. But we can't let that happen. We need to keep speaking out. We need to keep putting our foot down. We need to keep calling out the left-wing liberal media and speak the truth. Thank you guys so much for joining my show today. You've been watching You Made It Political right here with yours truly, Matt Clark. We are live every single weekday, 3 p.m., Facebook and YouTube. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to You Made It Political with Matt Clark. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show, or leave us a review on iTunes. And if you like our show or want to know more, check out YouMadeItPolitical.com.